welcome to a new guest episode. I'm very excited to introduce you to Susan today. So in a moment, I'm going to share her bio and then we'll get into some conversation. Like if you're a long-term listener to She Leads, She Thrives, you'll know how kind of our flow of our guest episodes go. If you're new to She Leads, She Thrives, let me just remind you, I'm Shannon Dunn. I am your host here, a long-term self-leadership and business coach. And one of the greatest things I love about hosting a podcast is getting to bring fabulous, inspiring, smart, wise women to you in this medium and to have a really cool conversation. So, Susan, how long is it? Maybe 2 years almost when we first
connected? Yeah, right? I think so.
Yeah. Isn't it? So we first met kind of doing some early, probably masterclasses and programs with Annie Couture. So if you haven't listened to the episode with Annie, I'm pretty sure it's episode 10. We'll tag it in the show notes. So Susan and I then went on to do her program Represented, and then we were both ended up being in a kind of like a mastermind experience in this year, 2023, which has been so fun, like to get to know you better, but to share that experience of working with Annie, challenging ourselves, each other, having Annie challenge us about how to lead a more racially inclusive business, right? It's been such a cool thing to do. So that may come up into this, but you have a whole different expertise I'm very excited to talk about. So, all right, let me share your bio and then we'll get into some questions. So Susan Reoch is a maverick in the copywriting world. I love that you claim that maverick status. So good, because you are. In my experience of you, definitely. She's known for her killer web copy skills and digital strategy informed by a decade-long user experience UX career. Her unique approach has seen her featured in top-tier publications like Copyhackers, Writers in Tech, the Freelancer's Year, and the Content Byte. That's spelled B-Y-T-E for anyone who's not sure about the right kind of bite there. Her free weekly newsletter, The UX Factor, which I love receiving. I think you're the only copywriter I actually stay consistently subscribe to, right?
That's an honor.
A UX group coaching program for copywriters beyond web copy, a go-to resource for online business owners and copywriters looking for the right words and strategy to skyrocket their success. How cool is that? Right?
That's me. Got to be bold.
I actually don't think we have yet had a copywriter.
Really?
As a guest. No, I don't think so. Like I'm just kind of doing a little mental note all the way back through. So we definitely haven't had a US copywriter, right? UX copywriter. So we're going to get to that. But I love a good founder story, and I've kind of found myself studying the conversations with those more. Cool. And I have heard your founder story, which I think is interesting around how you ended up being a copywriter. And then we'll get to how you ended up being a UX copywriter. So tell us the story.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're kind of entwined, and I find I love listening to founder stories too, particularly of copywriters, because we've all come from these weird and wonderful sort of backgrounds. A lot of us have tried different stuff. And I actually am a little bit different from a lot of copywriters because I got started in user experience or UX writing. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, they're probably more familiar with UX design, which is designing things like apps, but I was doing the words part of it. For Booking.com, which is a big global brand, living in Amsterdam, cycling around the canals, living my dream life. And I came back to Australia. The thing was that I got started so early in that industry that it didn't actually have a name yet. We weren't known as UX writers then.
So total maverick.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Didn't even have a name yet. The thing we didn't even have a name yet. Yeah.
Have a name yet, or not that I was aware of. So I came back to Australia and I was like, well, I'm a copywriter.
Yeah.
And I started pitching myself for all these copywriting jobs, and they were so different from the stuff that I had been doing before. Long story short, I eventually got a job as what we think of as a conversion copywriter, doing landing pages, doing SEO, doing web content. And but what I really found was that my user experience background really informed my copywriting. And then when I went out on my own and started my own business, after I had kids, I started my own business, which is something I've always wanted to do. And I found that I was getting also UX clients, so helping people build their digital products. And a lot of my conversion copywriting experience was informing that. So that's where the UX copywriting sort of thing came together where I was like, I don't see how I can separate these two, and they're both helping me do both the jobs that I'm doing really, really well. I think there's something there. No one else is talking about it. I'm going to start talking about it.
Yes.
And UX copywriting, as sort of, I talk about it, was born. So yeah, it's exciting.
Very cool. It's a very pioneering of you. I love it. Now, in case anybody who's listening, though, is not sure of the answer to this, because we're going to dive in more into the UX piece, clarify what copywriting is for us.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
I know, but I've also seen over the years of being in business, such a long time now, so many copywriters of your kind sharing what the difference is between copywriting and having a copyright. Right?
Yes.
Getting that confusion. So
yes.
Clarify it in case
everyone thinks we're lawyers.
Yeah, right.
Yes, totally.
I was like, the first few times I remember seeing that, and it was multiple times, I'm like, are you serious? Like, I don't know kind of how I always seemingly knew the difference, but that shocked me that there were so many kind of copywriters confessing that they don't do copyright and copyright law and, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's that felt so strange to me that they kind of wanted to make sure people realized. And I was like, oh, obviously a thing.
Well, people on the street, if you're a barbecue and people ask you what you do, if you say, oh, I'm a copywriter, most people will immediately think of copyright law and think that you do something within that.
Yeah.
I think people that are in the online business world have often written their own copy for their websites, their sales pages, their emails. So they're a little bit more familiar with what copy and copywriting is. But for anyone who is just completely in the dark, hi, welcome. I'm so glad that I get to be the first point of introduction to the copywriting world. So essentially, it's all about the words that sell products. And it really, a point of reference that has helped all copywriters become a little bit better known is Mad Men.
Yes.
Don Draper sitting there thinking up campaigns and slogans. That's sort of like the origin of copywriting, where it was print media. Of course, now old school
marketing, but like brand agencies, but God, it's so different to what they would be now. Right?
Yeah. Although I think there still is a place for that.
Yes.
We still see billboards, there's still television ads, there's still
print media,
still newspapers out there, magazines, that kind of thing. But really, and that's where the UX or the user experience part becomes so important, because the words that I write are all digital. They're for websites predominantly, also for sales pages and funnels, landing pages, emails, things like that, with the purpose to sell.
Yeah, which is important to understand for sure. So it's like, okay, which question would we start with around the whole UX thing? Because you've told us a little bit about what it is, but dive in a little bit more as to how different it is to, I guess, that general perception people have of copywriters and copywriting.
Yeah.
What is the user and the experience bit all about? Like, what makes it different to our probably ignorant assumptions or understanding of copywriters and what you
for sure
create?
For sure. Well, I think anyone who writes copy for digital, so anyone who writes like anything that's going to appear on the internet, will have an impact on the user experience. And the user experience is exactly what it sounds like: someone who is using that website or that sales page to get information and ultimately buy the thing, or inquire about the thing, depending on, how people buy the thing, get in touch, whatever it is. But then there is also a whole sort of science, philosophy, industry of UX or user experience. And that's over decades, because it has been going for a while. It might not have had a name, but it has been sort of talked about and developing for quite a few decades.
Even, I think back to doing my original business qualifications and doing my marketing units particularly, and they were talking about being user focused. So that's kind of user
and the sort of totally. So it's three things. It's the experience the user has. It's also a whole range of laws, philosophies, principles that have been developed and tested and tried that sort of are like theories, a good starting place. And then there's the practice of user experience, where you are you know, testing, iterating, trying things, putting it in front of people, researching, asking the consumer directly what they, you know, what they're going through,
Yes.
what their experience is, and seeing how they're using that product. Because a website is just like a can opener in a way. It's something, it's a tool that someone uses to do something. You know, so it's about developing that in a way that's super user friendly.
Yeah. And I think when I first heard you talking about UX copywriting and the UX experience, and heard you sharing about how much in depth you go into researching and, you know, and surveying and getting feedback from the users it was intended for, whatever the thing is that you're writing, creating, sharing, that surprised me in some ways. It did, then it made complete sense. But I was like, I think about other copywriters that I've known, worked with, had as clients over the years that don't do that. And it's like, oh, here's the difference, right? That real commitment to going so much further to understand the user and what they want, need, whatever, to make that whole experience phenomenal and to lead to sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I love about it because, well, one, because I don't have to think up stuff myself. I just know the questions to ask to get the answers that I need to write the thing. So it makes it so much easier from my perspective. But also you're providing a win for the end user because they're having this amazing experience and they're getting all their questions answered and they're not getting frustrated, you know, and they're able to do the thing that they want to do quickly and easily. And also then there's the business winner as well, because if you've got more people doing that, they're more likely to lead to more sales as well.
Sure.
And you know that your messaging is resonating.
Yeah. So I can kind of hear and sense a lot of obvious benefits about taking a UX approach with copywriting. What would you say are some of the benefits, even if you just come up with a couple, that people don't actually tend to realize or see or acknowledge? Yeah. Really so important to people understanding what UX copywriting and why you know, take that approach is actually, you know, why that's as important as it is.
Yeah, well, I think, okay, a couple of things. I think that, you know, when it's your own business and you're really close to it, it's easy. And this is like no shade on anyone. I own my own business and I've been there. Like it's really easy to get in your own head and focus on what you think is important. When really we're there, if we're service providers or even if we sell products, we're there to serve our clients and our customers. So it just helps make sure that we're not just telling someone what we think is important, but we're actually in dialogue and listening to what they find is important. And really the ultimate benefit is that, you know, it helps you make more sales. It helps you grow as a company. And because part of UX is about iterating. So for example, I launched a digital product last year, around this time last year. And it went really well and I got some feedback. I made some sales. It wasn't a raving success, but it was enough to go, okay, this is a good idea. This is a solid idea. So now I've just invested the money that I made on that into a designer to make it a real whiz bang product, and I will relaunch it. And I've tweaked and amended my my messaging based on the feedback that I got. So I know that this time it'll be more successful. So for me, it's a sustainable way to not only write copy, but also it's how I approach my business. It's pretty much how I approach everything in my life, because I'm like, you can just keep listening, keep getting that feedback and keep improving. And feel like you're a little bit more on track. I feel like so often in the online business world, it all feels a little bit like luck, you know, or a little bit like, oh, I don't know if this will work. Let's just try something, throw spaghetti at the wall. Like, to me, this feels
definitely a lot of that goes on, isn't it? A lot. And you know, sometimes the spaghetti sticks and it's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it falls right off or kind of slowly takes a slow kind of dive to the floor. Yeah, but I think, you know, when you have a curious nature, which I know you do like me, like we like to ask why, we like to know, we like to understand, we like to educate ourselves so that we can put the, I guess, the best possible thing at this time forward into the world. Such a different experience, both receiving it as the user, but also delivering it, right? Sharing it, creating it.
Totally. And I know that it's something that a lot of my clients struggle with, and this might resonate with people listening too, is that they actually feel really uncomfortable selling their things.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people come in and they're really purpose or values driven and they want to do the thing and they want to help people. but they don't want to ask for money, and they don't want to sound pushy or grabby or any of those things. And when you're really focused on the user and just meeting their needs, it kind of takes that feeling of hard sell away,
Yeah,
because you're
yeah.
solving a problem for people.
I'm glad you brought up the selling thing. Yeah, because I
Mm.
was going to ask you a question about that for sure, because I think it's such an important thing, because we know this through our own lived experience with, I guess, ourselves, our clients, but it's also a common thing shared in the business space, no matter what your kind of industry or expertise is that all the stuff about sales and selling, that you know, how hard it is, how horrible it is, how I don't want to be seen or perceived by this, I don't want to be judged like this. Like there's so many self-imposed, I feel, barriers to selling. And yet, how do we expect people to buy? Like seriously, like I find it such an interesting thing. And I know years ago I changed the language I used around selling, not so much for me, but around my ideal clients. Around, you said they're very values driven. They really wanted to show that they cared, and they didn't want to come across as a pushy, or, you know, it's like, yeah, but you have a business. You need to ask people to buy from you.
Yes.
But it kind of changed that whole narrative, or the word, I guess, the language around sales and selling to it's an invitation. You're inviting people to join you. And by the way, they have to pay to be part of the thing you've invited them to. Right? Just like you're inviting someone to go to a concert with you, they pay for your tickets, right?
Yes.
It's kind of that kind of thing. And that made a shift for people. But I can see how the UX approach can definitely make selling easier, because is not that, I guess, that mindset so much potentially of, I think, something I heard this morning, someone was talking about the difference between being convicted in what you've got to share and being convincing, having to feel convince people to get the thing you've got to share.
Yeah. You've just given two really powerful examples of how important the words are that we use, and how those subtle changes can actually have a really big impact in how someone sees things in their mind or perceives you in their mind. So it really is about finding those words.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the curiosity part of me that I just love. I'm like, okay, what are the right words? What are people saying? You know, and how can I reflect this back to them so they feel seen and understood?
Yeah. Because language is such an important part of being human, of course. But at the same time, there's so much perception and assumption around certain words and what they mean, what we think they mean, what we think that our audience thinks they mean, what their actual literal meaning is.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's such an interesting thing. And I see, and you would have seen this in the years you've been in business now, the trends of certain kinds of words that then become like mass used.
Yeah.
And feel like they actually have no meaning, and people kind of gloss on by.
Yeah.
But how do we, I guess, come to the place where we're using the language that does resonate with our audience, our ideal client community, but we're not falling into the trap of the jargon and the trendy, or whatever the industry you find yourself in? Because I, like, you know, one example is when I think about some of the more well-known business coaches in certain parts of the world, when I'm watching someone's sudden brand evolution, they're changing their visuals, their imagery, or their colors, and then the words they start using, it's like, oh, I see who you started working with.
Oh, really?
It's like they adopt that persona rather than actually, you know, really stay connected to who they are, what matters to them, what's important, and their ideal clients, which are not the same as that coach or person that they're learning, mentoring with, whatever.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
how do we kind of stay in that rather than get swayed by all the trends and the fancy, funny kind of words that often make no sense at all?
Yeah, no, well, exactly. Well, I think like the first thing is to use plain language. And I know everyone is always like, oh, no, I don't want to use plain language. That's so boring.
And
I'm always
also, we're being told we need to stand out. If we use plain language, are we standing out? Yeah.
Yeah, you actually will stand out if you use plain language, because everyone else is using all this wild jargon.
Yeah.
So, but I always say to that, like, is Hemingway boring? You know, if you can encapsulate a really So there's two parts of language, or there's two parts to copy. There's the messaging, what you're saying, and then there's the how you're saying it.
Yeah.
And the how you're saying it is always going to be best if it's in really plain language that's really easy for people to understand. But that doesn't mean that your message or your concepts have to be simple or like, you know, really dialed down. They can be really complex and interesting and thought-provoking, but they're going to be so much more powerful if people can understand them more quickly. So
Yes.
that's the balance that you're looking for. And I think the way to stand out is by provoking thought in people, not by using fancy, flowery language that's like hacking through weeds.
Or jargon. That's
or jargon
specific to your training or qualification or expertise. But the people that what you do, what you share, what you create is intended for don't know the jargon specific words.
No, they don't. And the key to that is to simply talk to those people or look where they're showing up in Facebook groups, Amazon reviews, Reddit threads, whatever it is, and see the words that they use and then use those words, use those same, you know, plain language words that they use to describe the thing that you're talking about. And you're going to come up with some amazing stuff. I guarantee it.
I know one of my favorite places to go looking for the language my ideal people use is in the testimonials that I ask for and they provide.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
When you give them a kind of a little framework, like I know I do, and I'm sure you do because you like your little frameworks and surveys.
Love it.
Where were you before? What were you looking for? What did you do or learn or change, whatever? What was the outcome? How are you now? Like really little formula to get us beautiful story, and there's all the language.
Yep, absolutely. There's all your messaging right there, right? And the exact words that you can use and weave into your headings or your body copy, you know, wherever it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. I remember, was it last year? It might have been the year before now, writing like almost like a glossary of coaching terms. And it's more around probably business coaching terms, to be honest. Because at the time I'd had a group of incredible women that were in a mastermind with me that were very savvy, like smart women who just liked it to be, say it as it is kind of thing. There was like, you know, how sometimes a certain style of or type of person all kind of gets connected together in the same group. And they were all like that. And I remember one particular word, this is a word that gets used a lot in business programs and coaching programs. They're like, what do people mean when they say container? Come to my container. And one of them said to me, I feel like I'm going to be shoved in a plastic box and have a lid stuffed on top. And it's like Tupperware, but not the kind that has the breathing hole, right? So that prompted this kind of like, okay, let me kind of share my understanding from what I've seen about some of the terms that are commonly used in my industry, but what they really mean. Like, let's get plain English them, right? That was just the start of it, but there was a lot of different things that came up. And again, this whole industry specific jargon that when you actually look at the word really doesn't mean much at all.
And I think the thing is, and where people often come to me and they're like, but Susan, you're telling me to write really short, snappy copy, and I can't do that without using these, you know, these jargon terms.
I know you would. I like to write.
But I actually think that it's not worth sacrificing clarity for length. You know, like always go for clarity first, and then you can focus on, okay, well, what can I cut out? How can I make this shorter? But yeah, clarity is key. And when you're talking about containers and all these industry specific, like copywriters can be the worst for it. So many copywriters talk about connecting and converting, right? Which is what we do. That is exactly what we do. Like we try to form an emotional connection with the user, and then we try and get them to buy something. You know, even saying that is so much clearer than saying, oh, I'm going to connect and convert your clients, because I don't, as a reader or as someone who is not a copywriter, I don't know what that means, you know?
No, that's it. It's so interesting, isn't it? How groups of people in industries or different businesses or whatever end up en masse usually adopting a certain or some specific terms that to people outside of that space means nothing. And I think the thing that people forget is often their ideal clients are outside of that space.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like I said, like that was my client. I think I'm just trying to remember who it was. It said that she was an HR strategist. So she spend time with business coaches and business mentors and people, you know, like you and I working with business owners all the time.
In containers.
Yeah, in containers. High-level corporate government kind of things. It's strategy at that level for HR.
Yeah.
So, it cracked me up when she said it, and I was like, yeah, I know. It's never a word that made sense to me. And I shared that article I wrote at the time, and I had a few people come to me and went, I like container. That's fine. You can like it. It just didn't make sense to me. And when I had it pointed out like that, it really didn't make sense to me. So
exactly.
say it for what it is. It's a group.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Just one example of many funny things that have come up for sure. So I know your phenomenal Beyond Web copy program gets rave reviews. Like I see you share them, which is great. Yeah, you're practicing what you teach. Yeah, and I'm seeing more and more copywriters taking it, which I think is a very cool thing. And I know that you've also shared very openly that it's not just for copywriters either. There's others that do come and take your course and learn to be UX. I'm not going to say the word converted came to mind. I was like, no, that's what we're just talking about. But they become immersed in that UX experience, right?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But for all the DIYers out there, all the business owners who are attempting at various levels of success to write their own copy, I think often from the feedback I've had through perception and perhaps reality, that a copywriter is too expensive to invest in. So they go, well, it's all right, I can write. I can string words together. I passed English at school or whatever language is your first language. Yeah. So for the DIYers, what are the common mistakes that you see people making in their copy through that lens of UX?
Okay. So I'd like to give everyone like some quick wins that they can walk away with, because there's more complex stuff that you can do as well. Of course. Always. But some quick wins that people can do. First of all, with their website, this is something that I think everyone should do, and hardly anyone does, is actually walk through it as if you are going to buy something from yourself, whatever it is, whether that's getting in touch for a sales call, or whether that's, buying something off an e-commerce site. Actually go through that journey, because that's what we talk about in user experience. We're not talking about reading from the top of the page and reading down the page and liking the way it all sounds. We're like, how does actually someone move through this in a journey? Because people click around. They're not just reading things top to bottom. In fact, they're barely reading down the bottom at all, if you like most websites. So actually just going through that, clicking on the links, and is there anything missing? Do you need anything extra, or can things be taken away? Can you streamline it in some way? Can you make it easier in some way? So I think just as a very easy little task that everyone can do, that's something that they can do and see if there are any opportunities there. If you've got, a free download that puts people on your email list, what's the experience like of that? Like sign up for your own thing,
exactly,
get your own,
sign up for your own thing.
See what that experience is like. Are there any kind of ways that you can make it easier, clearer, more simple to get in touch and work with you? I think that's one thing that they can do. A little formatting thing that is my pet peeve is long blocks of text that is all center aligned. You see it a lot on long form sales pages, and it is just very hard for the eye to track back to different lines. It is much easier. What you need to do is just bring in the margins and left align it. So it still looks nice and neat in that single column, but bring it all over. That said, long blocks of text in general are not great. Is there any way you can break it up with subheadings, bullet points, these kind of things, just to make it easier for people to skim down?
We often don't realize until we find ourselves literally eyeball to, looking at something, how challenging it can be to read some styles of writing, whether it's
like script,
all center, or the different fonts is a whole nother thing entirely. Really fine font. My eyes are like in their 50s now. They don't see stuff, right? Tiny font where I have to constantly kind of bring it out so I can see the size of it. Light colors on light colors, like dark colors on dark colors, like all of the design stuff. But then if the words aren't actually aligned in a way that our natural eye is designed and trained through the way we read books at school and stuff, to read left to right, and as you said, left aligned.
Yes, exactly. So just like little things like that. Another one that I see a lot in emails is just having the word here linked.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it'll be like, grab your free, I don't know, 7 steps to writing better UX copy here.
Yeah.
And then just the tiny little here. And if someone's scanning that, they're just going to see here. They're not going to see the whole CTA or the whole call to action.
The whole thing.
You know, so link the whole thing. So they're just a few quick tips that everyone can quickly go and check and update, and come and DM me on Instagram and tell me you've done it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a really great piece of accountability. And I think for anyone who just went into a complete state of overwhelm right then, just update things as you come across them. Like if you're reviewing a sales page for a program that you have hosted previously, and you're just going to update it with a more user experience lens now that you know more about that, and you've got feedback from the past participants that have taken it, and it was center aligned with big blocks of text. Now you can change it. Don't go and do it now if you're not going to use necessarily that sales page straight away. So, and yeah, the hyperlink thing I love. I remember someone saying that to me years ago, like, don't just do the tiny word at the end kind of thing. Yeah. And also don't just bold the tiny word at the end. So you think that makes people stand out, because then they're even more focused on here or whatever the word is, right? Too funny. The years and years ago, when I was still in corporate, I had a boss and I was in a senior project management role, and she was obsessed with white space. All of our like hundreds of pages of scoping documents and things, guides, manuals, workbooks we would write and create as part of a project. She was always like, you need more white space. No one can read it. It's all smashed together. Like, and even like the distance between like line spacing and font size, she was so particular about. And I'm so grateful, because I learned so much that stuck with me. And I make everything bigger in terms of font size. I won't want anyone's eyes to strain to read it.
No, exactly. And especially when you consider mobile as well.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I think it's so easy these days to check whether something is actually mobile responsive. Bring it up on your phone.
Yeah. Or just drag your browser across as well and see how it looks. Yeah.
I know. So it's all these different things, hey? So much more. Okay. So what's your pet hate as a user? So think about your favorite things. I know, in fact, I think I saw you share this in one of your emails just recently about your list of the things you're ready to buy for Black Friday, because we're right at that time, right? So thinking about the things you've got in your kind of, your periphery, if you like, or in your vision to go and purchase, what will be your pet hate that could turn you off buying from a particular place because of the lack of user experience, aside from the big lots of text and center aligned? What else is there?
Well, I think, and this is something that happens quite a lot on e-commerce actually, is when you go to buy and you're trying to put in your details and you can't. So a pop-up pops up or something like that you can't figure out how to make it go away on mobile. Well, or you can't,
it pops up and then seems to hide, so you can't even turn it off.
Yeah, things like that. That kind of thing will immediately make me go, nah, I'm not going to do it. And things, just not having like something a little bit more copy related, a little less design related. I mean, with UX, they really do overlap quite a lot. It's hard to talk about the copy without talking design. It's hard to talk design without talking about the copy. But a little bit more copy related is, if I don't have all the information that I need, if I don't know, for example, a lot of things on my list of Christmas presents, if there's no details about when I'm going to receive the things, I won't buy them. Delivery times. If I go to buy shoes, but then I have to go back 2 steps to find the sizing chart. All these points of friction, not having the right information is what's going to turn me off buying. And it's a similar thing if you're selling, for example, a digital course, but people don't, well, when do I get it? What's going to happen? The anxiety is, okay, I'm going to put in my credit card details. I'm going to click this button.
But then
am I going to get an email? But then what? So just making sure that everyone has the information they need when they need it, so that they feel really confident buying from you. I
feel, just in reflection, thinking about that now as a business owner, I think we do most of our purchases online, particularly when it comes to programs, even working with coaches or mentors or copywriters or designers, whatever. We often, like, the actual transaction piece of handing over money is all digital these days.
Yes.
And I find it interesting, just in reflection now, listening to what you're saying, the variations of what you see on FAQs, or like the kind of things you need to know, what people think actually what is best to include, and how many actual answers, questions they have left unanswered.
Yes. And I mean, a great way, you know, just like you gave the advice not to rush out and, like, you know, wildly update everything all in one turn with your FAQs. Just update them as you're receiving them. You know, so when you've got a promotion on and someone asks you a question, you know, that is probably a question someone else also has, especially if you're getting it multiple times. So put it in the FAQ, or even better, you know, incorporate it into the copy above as well.
Oh, I know. But yeah, now I'm going to look at things like that in a whole different lens, just yet again, and going, oh, here's all the questions I have. None of those got answered, right? Yeah, it's funny. I also think there's an acknowledgement there, and I like that you said where you get asked something multiple times, that if there's one person who asked you one question, that doesn't mean necessarily you have to go and update your FAQs with the answer to that question and the answer to that. If it's, particularly if it seems to come across as very personalized, answer the question. Don't not answer it, but it might not necessarily need to go in your FAQ section. Right?
Yes, no, definitely. There will always be, and that's with any kind of feedback. And I think that that's, you know, something that I think about quite a lot with the work that I do and the way that I put myself out there is, you know, the ego can take a bit of a battering, because if you put yourself out there for feedback, you're going to get it.
Well, that's it. There's always someone who likes to tell you every single minute thing. Yeah.
Yes. And so I always accept it graciously, and I always try to leave it a day before making the decision about whether it's something I should take on, because one of two things can happen. Either I panic and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to update this thing straight away. I can't believe I did that, blah, blah, blah. And then a day later, I'm like, actually, you know, that's just that person's opinion. That's not something I need to take on.
No,
or I go, who are they to tell me this? Don't they know that blah, blah, blah? And I like want to dismiss it. And then a day later, I'm like, well, actually, okay, maybe the delivery was off, but the content was actually really helpful.
Yeah. I love that. So you're having that space between requesting, receiving, and actually actioning any feedback that you receive. Yeah, particularly if you've asked for it. But yeah, isn't it? It's so fascinating, the different things that become important to individuals. And I know over the years with the kind of clients that I work with who are ambitious, they want to achieve, like quality and standards are really important to them. So they want to be giving the best that they possibly can, the best kind of experience for their clients. And they might have someone who becomes that person who nothing that they share or do or how they do it is ever right for that individual. And they might end up in coaching, have a conversation going, should I change? Should I do, like, everything from the price to the way it's delivered, to the way a support is provided, to the resources, the name of a program. Had that one come up recently with a client. She's like, someone just keeps telling me the name of my program is shit, I think was the word she used. And it was like one person amongst 30. And I was like, listen to the masses. Take that person's feedback on. But if it's one person and it's the same person, it's not that it's not important. Listen to it, but it doesn't mean that's the person to listen to go and change everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Business models. Yeah. No, because someone didn't like that. Yeah. Listen to the masses. I love it. Now, you've just recently launched your new website. UX Factor.
So exciting.
So what was that experience like, doing that through the lens of being a UX copywriter?
Oh man, the pressure.
I can imagine.
So intense.
I don't remember looking at your last
website has to be perfect.
That's it. Oh, yeah. But I remember looking at your last website, and that kind of just flowed for me. So I was like, how could she make it even better?
Yeah. Well, I came to realize, so I'm still going to keep my personal website, although that will be having an overhaul as well, because I'm sort of pivoting in the way that I position myself. But what I really realized, Shannon, was that I was running two businesses. So I've got my client work, which is amazing, and I love it. And I do, things like this where I talk about what I do and I get up on stage and, all that kind of good stuff. And I love that. So I was doing that part of my business. But then I also have this amazing coaching program for copywriters or people that want to be UX copywriters, and I'm developing more and more courses and resources there too. And I kind of it just was feeling too hard to talk about both of them on the same website.
Okay.
So I ended up in a very common situation, a lot of online business owners, where I had landing pages built on ConvertKit, built on Thrivecart, built on WordPress, you know, and they're all just sort of floating and satelliting and sort of duct taped together. And it was fine when I was in the, you know, startup phase of my business.
Yes.
But ultimately, I'm like, no, I need a refined online presence so I can really give this business my all. You know, and that's what the UX Copywriter, so everyone can go to the uxcopywriter.com and check it out. And it's an amazing. Oh, can you still?
Yeah, I can.
Sorry.
That's all right. The earphones. Yeah, we talked a long time.
My earphones just dropped out. So it's a great website. Everyone can go to it, the uxcopywriter.com. And at the heart of it is this amazing blog, because I just wanted to be able to help as many people as I could. And I decided that I was going to do that through blog form. So I am every week uploading these incredibly helpful resources, but people can also download freebies. They can just come into my world and get to know me, get to know what UX copywriting is all about. And what having that one presence does is whenever I have an opportunity like this, I can just refer people to that one place instead of being, here's a landing page for that, here's a landing page for this, you know, and always having to sort of bootstrap things together. It just feels so good to have, like, you want to know what I'm about? Here's the URL.
Yeah, right? It's all here. I love it. And I think that there's a time in our evolution and maturity in business where this is kind of necessary. Those grown-up decisions about where our information is actually stored, and to make it so easy for people to find it. Yeah,
totally. Make it easy for people to find it, but also make it easier for you to run your business. You know, like having a really good website, it's like having an employee. You know, what job do you want to give your website? And that's what I wish more people would think about websites like, instead of being like, oh, I need to have an online presence, it needs to like sound amazing. Be like, well, no, what do I actually want to outsource? You know, and it doesn't have to be everything, but what can I give my website? What job can it do for me 24/7 in the background?
Such a great thing to think about. I feel like people who have websites for their business, one or more, because I've got two as well. One just for the Thrivehatcher and then my Thrivehatcher Co for coaching and everything. Either tend to, particularly the DIYers, come in and constantly be updating and changing and refreshing everything, like kind of like almost going through every page all the time, often in a reactive way, or they don't touch their websites at all. So how do we find a happy medium if we are creating and putting our own content onto our website, like UX lens, you know, excluded, but like, I
think that's a really interesting question, and I think it will be different for everyone. I think it is good to every few years sort of audit your website. You know, is it still serving the purpose and the job that I want it to do? And if not, then what updates do I need to make? Do I need a completely new site? You know, can I get away with just refreshing a few things? Does the brand just need an update? Are the words still working? You know, all those kind of things. I think that's really good to do. I think going in and just tweaking a heading because you think something sounds better, or because you saw something similar in someone else's site and you thought, oh, that would look kind of cool to do that on mine. I feel like that's busy work that can distract from actually moving forward in your business.
A lot of time, can't it? Just those little tiny tweaks and stuff all the time. Yes,
exactly. And the more you pull that thread, then the more unravels, and the more you start like tweaking and changing. You're not looking at it from that holistic journey sort of perspective.
I even did that recently with something, a page that I had consciously and intentionally decided to make some updates on. Like, it was a all planned out thing, knew what it was going to be. And then all of a sudden I saw these, like a couple of spelling mistakes and a grammar mistake. This page has been live for a good couple of years. And I'm like, how did I not see it? Because I'm really like particular about those kind of things. Like, where did they come from? Like, I'm sure there's a gremlin gone in and changed stuff, right? But again, then you're like, oh, do I need to check every other page on my website or every blog post? And no. Like, let's get,
you don't.
Yeah, no.
I make typos all the time. I'm like this rare words person that's like, life is too short to proofread. Literally, you know, like I proofread, but not to that real granular level. Copywriters all around the world are like clutching their pearls.
I know they are.
I do not speak for all copywriters.
And I think also any authors that are listening, just wait till if you haven't yet, or if you have, you'll know you'll have had this. You publish your book, right? It's gone through so many sets of eyeballs, editors, like the design, like you've read it inside out, your team's read it, whatever. You've had people read it as like sample chapters, whatever. And you get the print version, you even read through, this is my process, read through that, check every single page for design, layout, words, right? It's all good, it's all good, it's all good. Then you put in the order to actually order them because people have bought them. And then you find this, the like the glaringly obvious, like it's got a big bright red line all over it, massive spelling mistake, usually in like one of the early pages or somewhere really critical. Like, where did you come from?
So, totally. Yeah. The good thing about writing for digital is it's always easy to update.
And it's easy to update.
Totally. That's the benefit. That is the benefit of this. But also with typos, I'm always like, I know someone is going to point it out to me.
There's always someone has to tell you.
The minute, just put it on LinkedIn and you don't have to do any proofreading ever again.
Yeah, true, right? I think maybe for my next, I've got a little book coming out before the end of this year. Yeah, just a little kind of journaly style one. In fact, this is the first time I'm even sharing that. But for my next big book, which might be end of next year, early the year after, I'm doing kind of deep in the manuscript right now, which is usually a good 2-year process. I might make even a competition of who can find and show me proof of the typos or spelling mistakes, because we know it's gone through all the appropriate processes to make sure there are none, and see which of them. And I even know which 2 archetypes are the 2 that are going to dive straight into that, right? Yeah, because there are certain, when I've received feedback around typos, if they're people that I know and I've profiled through the lens of the Thrive Factor, they always have one particular archetype. So it's just like, oh, there you go. That she's come to light again. Hello. It's so very funny. It's so funny.
And it's good. We need those. We need people
we do.
That are really
100%.
in the details. 100%. That's what makes the world so great.
And there's part of me that kind of almost like sits back for a little bit and goes, okay, which one of them is going to contact me first? Like, it's a little game that I play, and I am grateful for the feedback, but it's fascinating how consistent some people are in having to give it to you. It's funny, but I also thinking about the UX lens of copywriting and that, I guess, like connecting and converting, how valuable knowing your archetypes and therefore knowing the potential archetypes of your ideal clients has been for my clients. Because when they were writing to a version of ourselves, and I've shared this a lot, that over about 14 years or so that I've been using the archetypes in my business and working with clients with them, 60 to 70% of our own archetypes are highly likely going to show up in our ideal clients. You're literally writing or speaking to a version of yourself.
Interesting.
So thinking about the jargon and all the like fancy language and all the things we talked about before, talk to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a like immediate opportunity to have some user experience without someone kind of learning from you or hiring someone like yourself, Susan, to really take it to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, so fun. I've got some questions I need to ask you right now, though, that I ask all of our guests on the show.
Yes.
The first one I'd love to know your answer to is, what role does leadership play in your life and business?
Yes, I love this question so much. And I think it's something that has been a real focus in my business this year, although I might have phrased it differently. But really what this year has been about for me is about self-leadership, following my own North Star and not letting myself get too caught up in comparisons and doubts. I think because I do put myself and my programs and my copy, everything out there, it's easy to get sort of like pulled in one direction. So it's really about learning to trust myself and to know that I know where I'm heading and I can take
everything in, but I can't be taken off course. So yeah.
Oh, that's so good. And how often do we end up finding ourselves immersed in almost like somebody else's identity without actually realizing that we have gone off course and forgotten that we have a North Star that is actually there to guide us. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So, my friend, how do you know when you're thriving?
Yeah, I love this question too. And I feel like I can tap into something very recent because I was on vacation not that long ago. So for me, I know that I'm thriving when I have time and energy to focus on things outside of my business. I'm someone, when I'm under a lot of pressure, I will work harder. Like I am not someone that just naturally lights a candle, has a bar. Like, no.
Do more,
I'm like,
go all in.
Go all in, do more, work harder. So I know that I'm really thriving when my life feels more in balance, when I'm surrounded by the people I love, and when I'm doing work that really inspires me, and when I'm really excited by the future, when I can see, when I've got my eyes up and not just down.
Right. Yeah, it's like so many of us would have our own variation of that shared experience of when there's deadlines, when there's pressure, when there's expectations from yourself and perceived expectations or real ones from others, the kind of blinkers come up, right? And the narrow focus comes in and everything else gets abandoned, usually our self-care first.
Yes, always. Yeah.
Right? So, when we can, like you said, you open those up and have more space, it's a very different lived experience, isn't it? All right.
And it's so important. That's what that's what I'm in business for. I'm not in business just to build a business. I'm in business to have an amazing life. So,
Right. Remember why we started.
Yeah, exactly.
Conversation yesterday with someone who was going on about, but I don't know how. And I was like, stop focusing on how.
Yeah.
Why? And potentially what could the end experience look like? So you've got kind of a vision to work towards, but why is it important to you? The how will end up working itself out.
Exactly.
So much. All right. So if anyone is curious to know more, and I love you, I will just say at this point in time, anyone who does end up following you on Instagram, which is I know is your kind of favorite place to hang out in social media.
Yep.
Susan has a lot of very fun reels that you share. I love your reels. Like, what's she got now? So
I'm such a dog.
I love it though. And that's you. And like, I think I can remember connecting with those early on when I kind of got to know you a little bit, but then getting to know you so much more on a much deeper way in this kind of more particularly this year with the stuff that we were doing with Annie. It's like, of course that's you. Like, it was just, of course, like it's you being your authentic self, which I love. So where do people go to get that experience?
Yeah, well, now there's 2 social accounts you can follow me on. If you want to learn more about writing incredible copy, that feels really amazing to write and helps you get more sales and connect with your users in a really genuine way, you should come and follow the UX Copywriter. That's at Instagram. And if you want to follow me and see the kind of podcast that I'm showing up on the stages that I'm talking to, or new things that I'm publishing, come and follow me at Reoch_copywriter on Instagram. Also at LinkedIn.
Yeah, so we'll link those and the website and everything or the websites, I should say, to the show notes, so it's easy for people to find you. So one of the things a lot of the guests that we have on the show end up having a resource that you can connect people to. So you've got lots of great things you've created. What have you got to share with us? Like, and then we'll make sure the link for that is also available. What's your kind of favorite thing to share for people who want to know more about UX everything?
Yes. You know what? It's a little bit, I've got 2 things. The first thing is I really think my newsletters are the best content you can get from me. They're super entertaining. There's always a lesson.
I love how you can say that. Yeah,
they're amazing. You should definitely sign up for those. So that just come and jump on my newsletters and you'll get my best content. There is also, if anyone wants what I talked about before about moving through your website and following the user journey, if anyone wants to become more intentional in doing that, or would just like a little bit of hand holding with that, there is a resource that I've got. It's a free course. It's very small and bite size. There's 3 steps to it. It's called the Micro Copy Micro Course, because micro copy are the little road signs that are on your website that point people in the direction that they need to go. So people can absolutely download that for free. It's great. There's lots of before and afters. So you'll be really inspired. And I list out all the microcopy that's on your site in the beginning, and you'll be shocked at how much microcopy you actually have on your website.
I think one of my favorite places to look for interesting microcopy is on buttons.
Oh.
So, you know, when you go, you're about to buy something and it says, buy here or click here.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, everyone says that.
Yeah.
But if it's like, you know, the answer to your dreams is on the other side of this button, I'm like, I'm in, right? That kind of playful, fun, enticing, not what you expect to read.
I love that you're doing that.
I have I've invested quite a number of times, excuse me, to work with or to learn from copywriters of different kinds over the years, because I love writing. There's no surprise to me that I ended up being an author. I love written creation, the whole experience of it. And I understood early on that just trying to DIY it all myself was not the way to do it. But also I had so many clients asking me for kind of support for things to do with their content creation from a marketing perspective. And a lot of that ends up being their copy, their captions, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you know what? This is important to arm myself with enough to support my clients until we get to a point where I'm like, it's time for you to move to a copywriter, right?
That's
so I don't
amazing.
profess to be one, but it fascinates me.
Yeah.
You know, how we use words, everything about that, and how we can be, fun and playful, engaging, and show a personality.
Totally.
With our words. And I know that sometimes I have to remember to bring in two of my archetypes and not let the other two, who usually the ones that are in charge of writing the words, one of them who the mentor teacher is far more serious about getting the facts right, let her kind of ease off a little bit and let some of the creative, more colorful, inspiring stuff come forward.
Yes, I've just finished creating a resource all about that, Shannon, actually.
So I love it.
There you go.
Look out for that in your newsletter.
Yes, exactly.
Before we say a final goodbye, there's one last question I'd like to ask you.
Okay.
What's a final piece of wisdom that you can leave for, you know, the ambitious, impact-making, legacy-driven, creating souls that are listening to us today, that are probably a lot of DIYers? I'm going to put it out there, ladies, if you're, or gentlemen, if anyone gentlemen listening. If you're not, that's great. That's awesome. I've also have invested in copywriters. I don't just DIY everything. But a lot of us, I think, when we think we're clever, we just do it ourselves. But what's a final piece of wisdom you can share with them?
Copy related or
anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think, okay, I'm going to make it copy related then.
Okay.
I think when you're writing your copy, just always have in your mind, how would I say this to a friend that I really wanted to help? I feel like that's something that I always hold in my head when I'm writing copy for myself, or whether I'm writing copy for a client. How would I communicate this? How would I just say this to a friend that was having this problem and I believed this was the solution? How would I tell them about it?
Yeah. And I think when you take that approach, you kind of sink more into your heart, don't you, than being in the intellect of
what word do I need to put together?
The layout and everything. How long was that sentence? Have I written too much? Yeah. I love it. Of course. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad we got to do this. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope that there's been one, but I feel many things that you can take from our conversation today. And I say this often. If there is something that Susan said today that has really piqued your interest or got you intrigued, go and follow her. And, you know, I love when I'm on podcasts. I love this one, but I love when I'm a guest on other people's podcasts. When someone reaches out and messages me and go, I heard you talk about, and this is where. So go and DM her. She's very, very, aren't you? Very open to receiving messages. People answers them. So let Susan know that you heard something and what it was and what you're going to do about it. Like take some action. Don't just go, well, that was a cool conversation, and now I feel like I've got a massive list. Write the list and do one little thing at a time. Right? I love it. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to being back with you with a new episode very soon.